I'm actually a born drummer, and what happened was we had a school band, fourth class, and Miss Donnelly wanted a bar-on player, and I hadn't really, I kind of tipped around on a stringless banjo for a while with a pair of sticks, and I knew there was something happening. So then a girl brought a bar-on into the classroom, but was playing it like this, and I said to a friend of mine, that's not the way you play the bar-on. And he put his hand up and said, Miss, Ray can play the bar-on. So he threw me into it. And I was saying, I can't play the bar-on. I'd never played a bar-on before. She says, come up anyway. So I did. I went up and I put the stick in my hand. I held the bar-on. The tune started and I started playing. And I was like looking at this hand. I'm left-handed, looking at this left hand doing this rhythm. And I'm kind of going, I'm shocked. I'm just shocked because I played it straight away. So there was the kind of instant gratification. I was floating around for the rest of the day. I couldn't believe that actually happened. And then my brother Sherry carved me a pair of sticks one Saturday when he was at work, and he brought them back. And I thought this was the greatest thing since the sliced pan. And then I made a makeshift drum kit out of album covers, sleeves that came back from England, all that kind of thing. And there was everything on it. There was a suitcase, there was a big puff, and also battery cymbals and all that kind of stuff. It just kind of grew from there. So at the same time, I had three brothers who were really inspiring as well, because they used to buy loads of albums. So I started playing drums to Zappa, Captain Beefheart, the Mahavishnu Orchestra, all that kind of stuff. Really complex stuff. I really put myself up against it, but I knew I was going to do this for the rest of my life, and I knew I had to get good. So no better way to do it. From there, a friend of mine, Guido DeVito, brought out sets of sticks for me, and then there was definitely no stopping. So I practiced hard every day, bag on the floor in the hall, straight to the makeshift drum kit, and start beating them, putting on the records and all that. Homework, gee, Marcus, forget about it, all that kind of stuff. So that was the initial inspiration. Of course, I worked a summer job. I got my first kit when I was about 12, I think it was. And I was already kind of proficient enough to be able to manage the kit, and kept going from there. And it grew from there. We formed a band. When I was about 15, we had a band called The Verbs, and we got gigs with Dr. Feelgood. We got gigs with supporting the Darts. We got John Cooper Clarke, and we touring around Ireland, doing all the Savoys and various venues, and I was getting paid. I was like, okay, there's no turning back now anyway, that's for sure. So I was about 15 at the time. It was brilliant, it was very exciting. But I got the heebie-jeebies then, not too long after that, because I knew I was playing well, but I knew that I had work to do, really had work to do, if I was going to make this happen. Because I think that I had an epiphany about that. It was really kind of, this is a little more serious than I'm realizing. So I really set on a very, very heavy practice regime. I practiced for hours and hours every day until such time I was I felt it properly. It grew the way I wanted it to grow. It was natural, stuff like that. And that's about my beginning into the whole thing. Later on, one of my inspirations was Stuart Copeland. All right, he kind of freed up another style of drumming, and he was different. But that was much later. He kind of inspired this as well. And earlier, I was when I was saying about Mahavishnu Orchestra, about Frank Zappa, Captain Beefheart, all of that. People like Ralph Humphreys and Ainsley Dunbar, Chester Thompson, Bruce Underwood was a really big influence for me. And also, I have to say Billy Cobham, of course. And I wasn't listening to pop too much. I thought all the kids were listening to the stuff that I was listening to. Of course, they weren't. They were listening to Slade and all that other stuff, And I kind of found that out about some friends I had. And we were out kicking ball one day, and I had played "Safe as Milk" to the lads who were all inside the sitting room. We were eating sandwiches or something, and they went kind of quiet. And then "Safe as Milk" is by Captain Beefheart, of course. And when I went outside to kick ball or whatever we were doing, one of the lads says, "What's that shit you're listening to, Captain Stewhart?" Stewhart, said I. I just kind of thought to myself, I need new friends. So that was the end of that. Like it's all very diverse music. But I'll tell you what, it really helped me because it was one of those things that was a major challenge to try and even get your head around odd time signatures. Billy Collin was playing in 9, 5, 7s, 11s, all that kind of stuff. And I was just following along, you know. So the all that odd time signature stuff to me wasn't difficult anymore, you know. People could throw stuff at me, and I was really glad that it started off like that, not just 4/4 and leaving it at that, because something was bound to catch you out later on in life, you know. So it was those drummers that really got me in the end. Yeah. The first kind of signed band, big band that I was with was a band called Tuesday Blue from Limerick, and we were destined for good things, all right. U2's mother label signed us, and we did a 3-track EP called Tunnel Vision, and that was by way of guaranteeing us an international deal as well. So we have to say thank you very much for that. We eventually signed with EMI Manhattan. Oh, after about 6 years, that old knock knock joke made its way into our lives, and it was like, knock knock, who's there? Tuesday who? That's showbiz. Anyway, we got dropped, and that was the end of that. I was going out with a girl from Luxembourg, so I went straight over to Luxembourg. 2.5 days later, I was sitting in the factory in Dublin, and my holidays abandoned to join a band called No Sweat. And No Sweat, I still think to this day, as all the rock music I played, was probably the hardest working band that I was ever in. It was relentless. Like it was all whistle stop tours for American radio stations, supports, tours, like constantly rolling over all the time, constant travel. We were stony broke, you know, because we're just trying to keep everything going. And I was with that for 2.5 years. I kind of thought to myself, you know, I don't know if I want to join a band anymore. I'm not so sure if I want to be in a band anymore, because it's very hard work. And no sooner had that finished up, and I ended up playing with Ray Lynham, which was a super band now, a really, really brilliant band. So I went from, we'd say, rock straight into strict time country. And this is where all the background was starting to support me, like playing every genre of music, rock, country, jazz, all of that. So I sat in with Ray, and it was an instant click straight away. And we toured up and down Ireland. We didn't really go anywhere else. I loved it. We were doing lots of recordings. I was doing lots of session work. Myself and Owen O'Neill became the team for bass and drums in the studio with Dave Keary and Jimmy Smith and people like that. So we had a super band, and it was from there that Donald Lunny came to see us in the Harcourt in Dublin with a view to having me in the band. He'd already asked Owen. He wanted to put together this unit called Cool Fean. And it was from there I spent the next 6 years with Donald, and probably the most collaborative and exciting situations I was ever in. We worked with absolutely everybody, Steve Earle, Emmylou Harris, Sinead O'Connor, you name it, they were all there. Also the Coda drummers, which was one of the most big exciting things. Another guy called Danner Braz, which you'll see here. The whole premise of Donald being there was, the idea was that he'd been asked to put a thing together called Heritage of the Celts, and that was with the Bagad Campere, and Danner Braz was at the helm, had written the music, and he brought in stars with that as well, Elaine Morgan and Karen Matheson. So I met people from Capercaillie, went on to work with Capercaillie, and just constant collaboration was just amazing. But I was getting off doing Riverdance at the time, and I had to come back and put a dep in and all. It was getting kind of crazy, and I understood that, you know, the Riverdance people were saying, Ray, you have to kind of either do one or the other. So I knew with the amount of collaboration that we were doing, I needed to build up my CV, and I did. It was hard leaving Riverdance at the time, but I did, and I went on for the next 6 years with Donald, and we played just about everybody. Like places like the Kennedy Center in Washington and so on. We did an East-West video with Dakota drummers that was absolutely fantastic. And it just went on like that. Like we did stuff for PBS and all the travel. So yeah, you have the kit, and you need lots of it, because it's one of those things that versatility was really the order of the day for us. We had to, you know, be ready for anything that was thrown our way. We did our own set, like for instance at WOMAD in Seattle. And before we knew it, at the end of the night, we were called up as the band to play with Ali Farka Tour. Another time, it was just like the artists go on and on and on. But what you need is, like, you know, tricks and stuff like that. One thing I have is called the flick. So you have your normal snare drum, and you have your normal toms, and that's that rock thing going on. Okay, so with this area here, what you can do is you bring in your perk, and that changes the kick completely. So if I have the flick, and I do that, then all of a sudden it sounds like this. You know, and so on. But then, if you add in these drums over here, you have this kind of thing going on then. So there you have the kit. It's not really like a kit anymore. It's now like a tribal thing. So that's what you need to be doing. Different styles, wearing different hats for different musics, whether it be country, Latin, jazz, rock. All these styles I worked very, very hard on. And I think the main thing though was I was taken on for all the projects I did because I had all those styles, but I also had my own flair, and I could feel things like, you know, properly in the studio. Then we'd be very fast, and like we'd get stuff done nearly in one take all the time. That helps the artists a lot. But in saying, like we'd say, your own style. One style that I put together was kind of a kind of a zydeco thing. There's a thing that I call the drit, which is this, and this is a kind of another trick. So what you're getting is this. I love that real deep, rich tribal feel. We were once the band again for Taj Mahal, who's a phenomenal artist, great grooves. And he wanted to do a version of May the Circle Be Unbroken. And we were the band, and we came out and made a circle be unbroken. But I started doing this to it. Taj Mahal turned around and was like, "Who's your man?" You know, it's like he's loving this, like, because that's his thing. That's what he loves. So he loved that kind of zydeco thing. I use it quite a lot wherever I can. Even in rock and roll, if you're playing, we'd say, Johnny Be Good, like you have that. Fits into so many places. So any time I get the chance to do this, I do. But that's just one of the styles. Like there's so many others. So at this stage, Celtic Woman, as you can see from these discs, these are just some of them. The success was, you know, fantastic, big, huge rooms and million-selling albums and all that kind of stuff. And I just thought I couldn't get any better than this. And we're after having the catering. I think we were in Gainesville, Florida. Myself, Owen O'Neill, and Des Moore were standing at a pond outside at the back of the hall. And there was this alligator in the pond with the two beady eyes kind of cocking out, you know. I bet he was kind of going, breakfast, dinner, tea. We were just looking at it. And next thing my phone rang. And it was Maggie, my sister-in-law, John's wife. And like it's about 6 o'clock our time, and so that means it's very late in Ireland. So I thought something was wrong. I got a bit of a fright. And next thing I said, "Maggie, you okay?" She says, "No, everything's fine, Ray. I just want to ask you something." And I says, "Yeah, what's that?" She says, "You know, the lads are coming back for the Tree Arena at the time, and the Odyssey in Belfast. And Eamon and the boys are wondering, would you join the band? and take it from there. And I was absolutely stunned, you know. I just couldn't. Dennis Desmond was also in on this. I couldn't believe it. Like I think my shoes popped off or something, and maybe the alligator got them as well. I was sworn to secrecy. I was to say nothing, and until such time it was officially announced. And lo and behold, it really did come together in 2008, and it was just absolutely fantastic. So I got back. We were doing a DVD at Powers Court with Celtic Woman. Jimmy Lockhart and Barry Devlin turned up, and we went for a meeting after the shoot, and we outlined everything and what way we were going to do this. I was absolutely delighted with myself. I was elated, and it probably was like that comeback in the Point or the Three Arena was probably one of the most frightening and exciting moments in my life. But first of all, we did the Odyssey in Belfast, and we arrived out on stage, and that was fine. Eamon Carr was in the crowd to see, you know, what it's all about, and he noticed that the roar for Belfast wasn't what it used to be, and he was kind of, you know, a little miffed at this. But when he turned around and started looking at everyone, most of the auditorium was crying because they just couldn't believe the band got back together. So that was the kind of love of the band in Belfast alone. We finished the gig. Eamon came into the dressing room, and he told us what had happened. And I think there was like a stunned silence for about 10-15 minutes. And then next day we went to the Three Arena and took it from there. More times than not, people will look to the drummer. I don't know if that's to blame us or inspiration, but they still look. And it's kind of that grounding area, especially with bass and drums, I think, more than anything else. And here again lies the idea that you have to have many caps. And if you're in the studio, you know, if something is not feeling right or the client doesn't like it, you have to be able to come up with the next thing, and you know, you have to come up with it fast. So I think the whole objectivity here of taking on a gig is, first of all, if you don't think you're able to do it, say it. Don't try and, you know, beat yourself into the ground. It hasn't happened to me yet, which is good. I'm glad. But like, I think, like, you know, make sure, and this is my best piece of advice. There is no such thing as too much practice. There is just no such thing. If you have the chance to practice, do it. But there is too much practice if you're doing the same thing again and again and again. What you have to do is get that under your belt, move on to the next thing. Always take on challenges. So your practice regime means that each time you go to practice, you are finding out new things, finding, you know, new music and all that to listen to. Then once you start getting a wide range of everything, like we say, you're playing country, you're playing jazz, you're playing rock, you have all that at your disposal. So you just leave it there, park it there until such time you need it. And like, you know, only play what is necessary for the music. That's the single most important thing. I remember hearing a story about Steve Gadd in a music store in Dublin. Two fellas were talking, and they said that they saw Paul Simon at this gig that they did in Dublin, and Steve Gadd was at the helm. And one of them said to the other, he wasn't that good actually. You know, he really didn't do anything. He did everything. Just the lads wanted flash. They wanted drum solos all over the place. These are sounds. Play the sound. That's simple. Like, just play what's required. There's no better man to show you flash than Steve Gadd, I'll tell you that. But like, another thing that exists within those kind of boundaries, if you like, just take Irish traditional music. The thing about traditional music is this. I've heard a lot of fellas or people playing drums, and it's just a square peg in a round hole, because first of all, they haven't learned the melodies. So you have to learn the melodies, and the reason why you have to learn the melodies in Irish music is because the rhythm is in that melody already, whether it be jig, reel, slide, polka, whatever it is. So once you learn those melodies, you can start to develop from there. That's what happened to me with all this kind of stuff, and I was able to put in these odd things, like, you know, like, you know, it's kind of take this for instance. You might only do that for the whole thing. That might be your only piece. Or you might throw in the odd thing like, just stuff like that. That's as far as you need to take that one. If it's required that you have to be busier, well, like another one that kind of works really as well is so on. That's like a faster reel. And then if you want to go tribal on that, so you take a so you're going to put the 6/8 on this, you're going to go. That's so you have that feel in there. You're not necessarily playing that, you're going tribal with it. So you're grounding that there. There'll be perk going along with that, like shakers and all the other stuff that is necessary. And the main thing is this: that it is a round peg in a round hole, and you're not in the way of the frontline melodies. That will get you into trouble if you don't get that one right, I'll tell you. What I would say about starting out playing drums is the important part of it is, like what I said earlier on, about your practice regime. My advice is try and expand as far as you can with all the different genres of music. Not only that, it'll keep you fresh to anything that comes your way. Try it all. You'll be better at some styles than others, but practice the ones that you're not as good at. And stay on that until they get into a good feeling. If you end up in a rock band, for instance, and you've been working on country and jazz and all these other things, you'd be very surprised how much of that other stuff will creep in because you've worked on it. Now, you might be hitting the drums hard and all that, but there's that kind of lift and groove, especially for shuffles and, match hand Texas shuffles and stuff like that. All those things are very, very important to have. And because what you'll do is you'll do a thing called ghosting, like this. You can hear that it's hopping along. There's a bit of hip hop in there. There's a bit of, I would say, that jazz kind of. So once you're doing stuff like that, all of a sudden the kit has a feel. The one thing that you're going to be hired for more than anything else is how you feel the song. Singers especially, that's very important for. It's very important for the whole band. But the reason why people look to the drummer is because that feel can either be really not work out, or you make it really good for everybody. And the whole objectivity is to put it in the pocket and keep it there and let everyone sit on top of that. That's the one thing that you get hired for more times than being flash and zipping around the kit and all that. Do work on your drum solos if you want, because that might be required at some stage or other. But generally speaking, you picked up for feel and for the ability to play different things.